there we go. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And as I say, hope you're all looking forward to season 10. First things first, league system. Why do we give away penalties? It's an important feature of league racing. It's not just specific to us, it's how leagues work. And what it does is it helps encourage good behavior on track and it helps staff manage an event. Penalties are an integral part of league racing. We all get them at some point. I myself have got them before. It's part of what happens whenever you go out there and you race. Motorsport is just an inherently dangerous sport at times. Yes, okay. When I say dangerous, I don't mean risk of injury or death or anything like um, we are spared from being on the side of a screen, but incidents are always part of. Yes, so have I, Altosis. I have also been injured from sim racing. I did today. You broke my thumb. Anyway, uh, but it, penalties are a part of league racing, but it's your responsibility to minimize them. That is only you can affect how many penalty marks you get throughout a season. Um, you know, we don't go out there to target particular drivers or to try to give out as many penalties as possible. If you get a penalty during the season, the reason why is because you've made a mistake, and we're trying to say this is something that we need to make sure doesn't happen again. Because ultimately, what do we want? We all want to go out there, we all want to enjoy our racing. We've all been in a race where you've prepared all week, you're really, really excited, you've qualified well, going down into turn one, someone forgets to brake and wipes you out. It happens to all of us, and we need to minimize that as much as possible. How do you do that? You go and we have a penalty structure that is there. If you find yourself, on a lot of penalty marks, or you find yourself regularly in the steward's office, then the reason why has to be because you're making regular mistakes. Because as I say, we don't go picking out drivers. We treat every driver the same, from myself, as league owner, right down to the new member that just joined. Everyone gets treated the same when we're in the steward's office, and that's very important to the integrity of the league and for ultimate fairness as well. Uh, one of the easiest to avoid. This is something that we should never really have to give a penalty out for, but it happens from time to time. Driver's briefing. There is a reason for the driver briefing. I know it sounds similar every single time, but it is very important to make sure you're there on time. Number one, because we need you there on time to be able to start the event. If you're not there on time, we won't be able to start the event on time. And it's important. And also, the information that is given out sometimes overrides the rule book, so it's important to listen carefully to the information that is provided as well, because there may very well be an instance where something about that particular track and car combination results in there being a slight tweak to the rules. For example, the Watkins Glen pit entry. We uh, changed the rules slightly about how the pit entry works, because it's a particularly dangerous pit entry for those that drive F1. It's very similar to Austria, um, with the way the pit entry is. So those are very interesting, um, are very important points that you need to listen to. So the driver's briefing is very important. And also remember, show respect to staff. Remember, we're all volunteers here. The reason why we are here is purely to give you access to career racing. Um, no one gets paid. We're all here to give you access to great racing. And if we tell you that something has to be done, or we give you an instruction, it's so that we can run events nice and smooth. And that brings me to the next one. Always listen to instruction. If a staff member gives you instruction, it's to try and get the event back going again. Most likely, say during a red flag, we need to get everything reset and go again. So it's always important to listen to instruction. Okay. So then, racecraft. Why do we talk about racecraft? Incidents ruin the enjoyment of racing for other people. Um, as I say, we've all been involved in an incident at some point in our racing careers where you've prepared for a whole week and then it gets ruined in turn one because someone crashes into you. Um, so it's important to make sure that we try to minimize the number of incidents as much as possible. Um, Incidents ruin the enjoyment for everyone. Um, the more we can push for 0 incidents, the better. We've had a couple of instances during this season, or sorry, season 9, where we came away with 0 incidents. Absolutely incredible achievement from everyone involved. Several F1 tiers as well as ACC were able to come away with zero reports for the weekend, which is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, there was a couple of, or maybe it was season 8, but there was a couple at some point where ACC had 0. Um, and what does that mean? It means everyone walks away with a big smile on their face because everyone then was able to fight for the position that they deserve, which is absolutely excellent. So it's important to make sure we reduce the number of incidents, number one, because it improves everyone's enjoyment, and number two, it helps you fight for better positions. If you don't get involved in incidents, on average, your race position will end up better. So, this season, what we're going to take a look at, which we haven't had a look at in quite a while, is vision. One of our most important tools when we're racing as sim racing drivers is our eyes. It's one of the only ways we get information about our position on circuit. So it's important to make sure that we avoid tunnel vision and making sure that we take a look at the entire picture that our screen is giving us. When racing, it's really easy to experience tunnel vision. Whenever you're out there and you're focusing, you're trying to nail that lap, every lap, every lap. It's very easy to just zoom your focus down on making sure you're trying to hit that breaking point each time. But unfortunately, then that means you lose sight of important information around you. So remember to look around the screen. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean stare at your lap counter while you're barreling down a straight, or coming towards a corner. But make sure you're glancing everywhere around the screen to pick up on as much information as possible. Then, yep, exactly. I'm going to make that point in just a moment. And make sure you're checking your markers and looking down the track. Seeing incidents early can help you avoid them. And as Altosa said, this is really important, not just for helping avoid incidents, because then you see them early and you can avoid them. It also helps improve your pace as well, because real drivers and esport drivers always look about a second up the track. Whenever they're getting towards their brake marker, they are already looking at the apex. As they're turning towards the apex, they're already looking at the exit curb, and you can see this here. I've seen tests for real drivers with eye trackers, and you can see that where they're focusing is so far down the track. And what does that do? That helps then slow everything down. If you're staring at the bonnet of your car, number one, if a car spins in front of you, you're never going to know, and you're going to crash into them. And if and as well, things are going to come rushing at you very quickly. If you can look further down the track, then things are going to seem like it's much slower. The apex isn't going to come towards you as quickly. The exit curb isn't going to come towards you as quickly. And that helps you then to be able to nail that consistent lap every time. Um, so it's something that it's a double-edged sword essentially. It can help you with two important things when it comes to racing. So here's a particular situation that happened recently. We were racing these here genetic cars in PC2, and it's very easy to just have your vision zoom down on the diffuser of the car ahead. Maybe you're looking at your gear as well, just to make sure you get the shift point right. And you're trying to carry the speed out of the corner here so you can try and attack this driver further down. But what happens? This car here actually began to spin, and because in this particular instance, this was me, I was paying attention to what that car was doing. I was able to avoid this incident because I was able to see where that car was going and avoid causing even bigger of an incident. So it's important to make sure that you're always looking as far down the track as possible. Another benefit here as well is if you're looking up here, potentially if there was an incident going on here, then you'd be able to avoid that as well. Also, you're looking for the exit curb there, so you know if the car's understeering or if you need to make any corrections, if you maybe carry a bit more speed, so looking in that area is very important as well. And then another area to keep an eye on is this blue box as well. Watching out for proximity arrows within sim racing. We're blessed with being able to have proximity arrows, and obviously general information as well about your car. I should also add as well mirrors. It's hard to see in this one because I was in VR, so I was able to just glance at them. But don't forget your virtual mirror as well, which would normally be in the center of the screen, and your other mirrors, because these are a great way to build up that picture. You want to have a good feeling of whereabouts uh, the other cars are on track. If you know that there's no cars behind you, then you can relax a little bit and focus on just ahead of you. If you know there's no cars in front of you, then you can just focus on the racing line, and you know that there's not going to be an incident that's suddenly going to pop out of nowhere. So bear this in mind. Really, really start to train yourself to start looking everywhere on screen, and to try and look as far ahead of you as possible. It'll help you then react to what's coming ahead. So, this legendary phrase that pops up in every single math class because this causes so many problems. If you no longer go for a gap that exists, or I should say, if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer the racing driver. This unfortunately always translates to if gap car. It causes constant problems in the sim racing community because you know people tend to just think that you have to go for every gap ever. And unfortunately, Senna was lying at the time. He was trying to protect himself from that 1990s incident, so it's not even true. And you have to remember you can't beat physics. What can seem like a gap sometimes isn't necessarily. Some things that you have to consider is have they actually made a mistake? Are they braking, too late and they've gone wide, or are they just taking a late apex? A lot of circuits, there are some particular corners where a late apex is considerably better. And it may look like on entry they are leaving a lot of space on the inside, uh, but what happens is they cut back to the apex because they're on the power nice and early, and they get a better exit out of the corner. Now, does that mean you should never stick the car in that gap? No, we're racing drivers, and sometimes you've got to take advantage where you can, but you have to take into consideration: are you close enough to be able to make that move, and can they see me? And as well, is this worth the risk? Um, yes, it's not the most exciting way to go racing, but sometimes you have to consider, um, you know, maybe if the car in front has a time penalty, just staying behind and taking the position that way. Yes, okay, it's not the most exciting, as I say, but it guarantees that position rather than going for a risky move. They turn in, wipe you out, and even if it's their fault, we can't give you that time back. You end up losing it, and then potentially losing more points than if you had to just stay behind. Um, you know, and as well, take into consideration the situation as well. Lap one of a new season, starting P15 on the grid. Is there any point sending it into turn one? Probably not. It's better to be a lot more risky or a lot more safe, because you've got a long race and a long season ahead. Plenty of time to make up plenty of points. Um, Whereas if it's coming down to the final quarter of the final lap of the final race of the season, and you have to overtake this guy or you lose the championship, then maybe it is a bit more worth the risk. Does that mean you dive bomb every quarter? No, of course. But you have to make sure that you're weighing up those risks. Um, so here is a good example of an if gap car situation in this race. So we can see we are in the sprint race in France. We're starting in P14, and we do get a good start, which is going to throw us off the line here very well. We're going to make a pass here for 12th and 13th, but then we brake too late, and we're going to just end up causing a collision ahead. And we can see here it is completely unreasonable. While yes, there is tarmac here, it is completely unreasonable to expect this Ferrari and the cars on the outside to expect there to be a car here. It would have been much better to just take these two positions, slot in behind these two. We would then be P11 and be able to fight, going on further around. We're on soft tires, so would have we'd be able to have a good race. Plus, as well, France, there's some really, really good DRS zones here. So it's a lot easier to overtake here, in particular in France, than it is in most other places. So this here, yeah, in ACC it's even better. Yeah, 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 exactly. So it's something that this driver in particular didn't take into consideration at that particular time. So they came away with a penalty with that. This actually fits in well. So you can see here in the diagram, basically the Ferrari was this yellow car. They were already turning in. This entry vortex of danger had been created, and the red car just forced their way in there. And that's why the penalty was given, because they were not alongside enough before the start of turn-in. It's the turn-in point that is extremely important on making decisions at who is in fault. And you cannot expect the yellow car to be able to back off if they're already turning in, because their tires are already loaded up. They've already completed their braking phase. They're transitioning then to the turn-in phase. They're letting off and trail braking, so the car is going to be right on the limit. And if you just throw your car in there, we're all a victim of physics, and you can't really expect much. So bear that in mind. Does that mean never go for a late braking move? Of course not. But you have to consider that if they've already started turning in, then it's too late, and it's probably time then to back out. Remember as well, the car may very well have a blind spot. Yes, okay, we have proximity arrows, but in particular, if you're driving a Ferrari in the F1 game, for example, and using PCAM, you can easily lose the proximity arrows on the halo. Does that mean that it's not their fault? No, of course not. It would still be their fault, but you would end up getting your front wing wiped off, or having a damaged splitter because they've cut across your nose, and we can't give you that time back even if we do penalize them. So bear in mind, can that car see me? Also, is it worth the risk? In that previous video, it was lap 1. There was no need to go diving down the inside of so many cars all at once. It was only going to end up in one way. and it resulted in several contacts. Does the car ahead of time penalties? It's not the most exciting way to go racing, but again, it helps take the position safely. Can you undercut on strategy? F1, the undercut's very powerful. ACC, it depends. The overcut generally is more powerful. So can you box, get some new tires, and then yep. Can you box, get some new tires, and beat them in the pits? Again, it's not the most exciting thing. You're not going side by side. You're driving past them as they're in the pits, and you get to wave bye bye. But it's safe because they can't crash into you if if they're sitting stationary in their box you know. So that's something to consider as well. For the F1 cars in particular, is a DRS straight coming up next. If you overtake someone and there's a detection point coming up next, what's going to happen? They're going to get DRS and they're just going to overtake you back. It would be better to sit behind, lose zero point 0.1, zero point 0.2 of a second for one corner, get the DRS and overtake them at DRS, and then use your ERS to pull away. Rather than giving them free DRS and then be able to attack you back. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean play DRS chicken. It just means think about it and be careful and plan where you're going to make your attack. And then this works on the flip side as well. Be careful of racing line blindness. If that driver, that red car, has sufficient amount of overlap with you, so depending on the series, it may be car halfway alongside, or it may be front tire to rear tire. Has the other driver got that overlap with you? If they have, then you've got to give them space. Um, uh, if you just turn in across them, then we're just going to penalize you for racing line blindness. So you got to make sure that when you're in a battle, you forget about the racing line and focus on where that other car is, because ultimately you have to avoid contact. Now, sometimes you can get away with a little bit of rubbins racing, but you should intend to always avoid contact. Consider as well, are they considerably faster? Are they a driver that is getting really frustrated because they're 2-3 seconds a lot faster than you? Consider just letting them through and following them. Try to use all your tools to help them pull you along. Like for example, you could get DRS on that driver, and they could pull you along into a battle which you'd be able to do better in. Does that mean let a faster driver behind past all the time? No, of course not. We're racing drivers and we want to race. But sometimes you have to accept this is not my battle right now, and battling is just going to slow us both down and cause us both pain. And you got to think about your overall race time rather than next corner, next corner, next corner. And if you're in doubt, sometimes it's better just leave the space anyway. It's better to lose 0.1 of a second, 0.2 of a second for a car that's not there, rather than to lose 10 seconds because the car was there, you didn't know, and you end up getting spun out because we can't give you that time back. So sometimes consider just leaving the space anyway if you're unsure. Does that mean do it all the time? No, of course not. Sometimes you got to be aggressive, but it's all about balance. Another massively important point as well, patience. Try to practice as much as you can. Is it a requirement? No, you don't have to practice the race here. But what it does do, it helps to transfer driving the car from you having to be reactive to what the car is doing into almost subconscious, and it means then it frees up brain capacity. If you could not put spoilers in there, just pop it into race chat, please. Um, if you It frees up brain capacity for thinking about battles. We'll post results here. Yeah, Yeah, no worries. Just post it on the table. Um, it frees up brain capacity for thinking about battles, and seeing where their cars are, and it helps slow everything down as well because you're not driving and reacting to what the car is doing. You know what it's going to do ahead of time. Um, Remember, you don't need to overtake every car on every corner. Battling costs time. If you go side by side with a driver, you can easily lose 2, 3, sometimes more seconds within a battle, depending on how long you go side by side with someone. Consider saving your ERS, your tires, your fuel for a late aggressive stint. Um, you know, um, and maybe it's better to sit behind, lose half a second um, per lap, um, but be patient and then be able to attack at a really good point and get the battle done quickly so you can drive away rather than losing 3 seconds every lap going side by side with them and not being able to completely finish the move because you've not planned it well and they're able to stay beside you and so you have to you can't carry as much speed through the court so you'd lose more time overall. Because remember, racing is all about reducing your overall race time, which doesn't necessarily mean getting past the driver ahead at the earliest possible, or yeah, forcing your way through other drivers. Um, so how you can then get past is plan your attack, make it clean. The cleaner you can make an overtake, then the less time you lose overall. See where they make mistakes. Are they a driver like me who sucks at hairpins? Maybe you can outbrake them and beat them on the hairpin and drive away. Are they a driver that struggles on with traction on the exit? Maybe you'd be able to beat them on a particularly long straight because you can get a better drive out of the corner. Um, See where they're making mistakes. Apply pressure. You want to drive close to them without making contact. You've got to make sure you don't touch the back of their car, but you can apply pressure. Let them know you're there and watch for the mistake. And as soon as it happens, then you can take advantage of it and get past nice and clean and reduce the amount of time you spend actually battling. Yep, and consider car types and setups as well. In the F1 series, the cars are identical, but setups make a massive difference. Wing level and such. In ACC, the actual car itself makes a difference. Um, you know, because a Lamborghini may be more difficult to overtake, for example, than a Ferrari, or so on and so forth. Consider that as well. Maybe you can't get past this car, particularly because the car you're in can't overtake that other car because they've got a higher top speed. So maybe you got to box early, which brings me on to the next one. Consider strategy. If you're struggling to get past a driver, pit for new tires. In F1, that would be the undercut. You want to box earlier than them, and you box early, get on some nice fresh tires. You set some hot laps, and then while they pit, they're sitting stationary while you go flying past. With ACC, it's a little more difficult because the overcut is better, so it can be a little bit more frustrating. But then use your strategy to your advantage. Try to go longer on your stint. So while you're behind that other driver, save your tires so that when they do box, you can use up more of your tires to set some hot laps. Then, while you've got really nice hot tires that are up to pressure, the other guy is struggling sliding around on cold tires. Then when you come in and pit, you're ahead of them at pit exit. You know, it's again, as I say, not the most exciting, but it's safe because it means then you overtake them in such a way that there's zero chance of contact. So, in summary, remember, the more you can prepare for a race, the better. Try to practice, learn the track. Don't trust the in-game racing line. It's certainly not perfect. Yeah, and in most games, it's either far too aggressive or not aggressive enough. So a lot of the times, it's not even good. And it's far too easy to get tunnel vision when you're using the racing line. because you can tend to focus on it, and you're driving in a reactionary way rather than in a subconscious way, because you're waiting for that red area in the for the line to pop up rather than knowing ahead of time, right, I need to brake at this particular point. Um, so make sure you attend the briefing, listen, learn. There's always important information that goes out there. Yes, I know it sounds very similar all the time, but make sure you're attending the briefing, and you listen, you learn. It's very, very important. Patience. Plan your attack. You don't have to attack every car, every corner. Sometimes being patient pays in overall race time rather than just attacking every second. Avoid contact. Make sure you're avoiding contact. If you avoid contact, you avoid 99% of the penalties in the rulebook. The vast majority of penalties in the rulebook come from a driver making contact with another. So if you don't touch another car, then generally you'll not get any penalties. It's as simple as that. I know it's very easy to say it from this chair, but really, really, it comes down to if you don't touch another car while you're out there on circuit, then you avoid a massive number of potential penalties. Um, you're never going to be able to avoid 100% of the time. As I say, incidents are part of racing, but the more you can avoid, the better. Avoid racing line blindness, and always think as well, can they see me? Is it possible for them to be able to see me or not? All right. Are there any particular questions? Yeah, now I'm not saying don't use the racing line. That is, I'm sure there's another one at 10 p.m. in 90 minutes, Smith. Um, I know that the Formula One was on there for a little bit. Um, so, yeah, a lot of drivers use the racing line. It's it's a tool that drivers are able to race or to use if they wish. But at the same time, if you can drive without it and be just as fast, in my opinion, you're a better overall driver because then you're not as tempted to tunnel vision. Um, you know, take what I say with a pinch of salt because I'm not exactly the fastest driver in the world. Despite me not using a line, but I find that when I use the racing line, I tend to focus on it far too much. Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, Altosis. Sometimes practicing without the line helps you in a battle because then if the line is covered by another car, oh, I brake at the 100-meter board anyway. So it's a good idea to pick up brake markers anyway, because a lot of the times what happens whenever you are in a battle, the other car's over the top of your racing line, and where do you brake? And then you're on top of it too late, and then you brake too late, you tap the car in front. So definitely, it's something good, to try and practice without the racing line, or at the very least pick up solid brake markers. Yeah, yeah, careful or yeah, definitely agree. Using racing line is boring. Figure it out on the go. Yeah, I mean, well, again, you're having a bit of fun. Yeah, verse, that's fine. That's the recorded bit over. Um, while I'm talking, feel free if anyone else wants to put any more questions. Um, while I get cough, or you're probably just yeah, no worries first. Just having a bit of fun. But yeah, I find it's much more satisfying racing with no line. Again, that's a very personal thing. Because I yeah, same. I didn't use racing line today either. and I hadn't hit the track until today. I prefer personally racing with no line because I feel it is more rewarding that way. That is a personal thing. I would not, um, put down another driver for using line if they wish to do so. Um, you know, yeah, 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 I feel that sometimes too. I personally don't use the line because it is more satisfying for me. Okay, are there any questions? Are there any particular incidents you have experienced through the season? Um, I guess really Art and Night Shift, if you guys would want to take a look at, because I am happy to do so. Feel free to leave if you don't want to hang about. That's the um, everything done until now. You'll get your penalty marks removed. But if there is anything in particular you would want to have a look at, so that we can maybe explain what exactly went wrong and some of the techniques how some of these techniques could be used to improve, feel free to put it in chat here. Yeah, Altosis, yes. I still am scarred from that. No, used to be you're not allowed to because you're in the steer's room anyway. You know fine right what's what happens. And for those that are watching the recording, if you do have any questions as well, do feel free to pop me a DM. I would be more than happy to answer any questions as well. And we'll take them offline. And as well, if there's a particular incident you would like a look at, I'd also be more than happy to go over that as well. Yeah, no problem. Night shift. That's grand. If there is any you would like a look at any particular time, the stewards are always more than happy to talk over because ultimately, what is the reason for giving out a penalty? It's for us to try and tell you, hey, this is what happened. We need to make sure it doesn't happen again. And if we can help you understand why, so that we can do better next time. That's the point. The point isn't to go after drivers and attack them. you know, um, it's particularly, um, you know, um, yeah, uh, Kaflor, whenever we are doing our reviews, F1 is a little bit more strict, because any contact can upset the car because yeah, EA game. But for the likes of, for example, the MX-5s today, or indeed ACC, um, kissing bumpers is perfectly fine. The vast majority of the time, the physics engine is perfect. Yeah, 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 exactly. The physics engine generally can take it a little bit. Now it depends. But Rubbin's racing. For the most part, a little bit of a rub, a little bit of a tire face to tire face contact is part of racing. A little bit of a bump is going to come along with an aggressive attack sometimes. But if it results in the other driver taking heavy damage or even light damage as well, um, or they end up going flying off the circuit as a result, then obviously that's when we have to take a look at it. But yeah, those little bumper kisses, they're gonna happen whenever you're yeah, IRL GT3 racing. They bump all the time. I think that's probably a little too aggressive. Especially for because we have to take netcode into consideration. But hey, yeah, well, when you're watching GT3, it's really exciting. You know. Yep, Kaffler, that's something that we do see an awful lot. That when you're following a driver that is slower, um, and you've only just caught up to them, we see it all the time. That a driver will just not anticipate where they brake and they slap into the back of them. which is why our penalties about, contacts with the rear are so strict. Um, you know, but if it's a little kiss, as a result of, they braked a little bit too early. Oh, that's interesting. That's fine. So it just depends. It just depends. We're a very sensible bunch here. So we are. All right, I think we will probably close it off there. If you are watching the recording, thank you very much for taking the time to watch the recording, and we will see you again soon. Enjoy the season, and thank you very much.